Who says 32 ACP isn't enough with Dan the Wolfman? And he sent over some ammo for me to test through my little Kel-Tec pistol here, my Kel-Tec P32, to see how this stuff will do. He sent over some Spear Gold Dot. Over here we have some Hydra-Shok Deep and some PPU 71 grain jacketed hollow point. So our Spear Gold Dot is a 60 grain. It is rated at 960 feet per second. Our Federal Hydra-Shok Deep is a 68 grain rated at 1,000 feet per second. Our PPU is a 71 grain rated at 902 feet per second. So the Gold Dot is the only one that lists a barrel length, and that shows a 4-inch barrel. The rest of them, I have no idea what those velocity ratings are from. So we're going to do an interesting test here to see how these things do. So I'm going to go through the chronograph, see what kind of velocity and accuracy we get at the same time. Then I'm going to hit my 10% clear ballistic block here. I'm going to go into plain clear ballistics to see what the best potential of those cartridges are. A lot of times smaller caliber or smaller powered rounds will not get hollow point expansion if they go through fabric. So I want to see what they'll look like in a plain clear ballistic shot. And then after that, I'm going to do more of a real world simulation. We have 4 layers of sweatshirt on this first 3-inch piece that represents our pectoral muscle. After that, we'll have a 1/4-inch medium density fiberboard to see what kind of results we get through a rib simulation. And then after that, I'm going to do something a little bit different than what I normally do. I have a ballistic head simulation thing I've made here. We have a 1/4-inch medium density fiberboard on the front and the back of this 6-inch piece of clear ballistics gel. A little bit of gel melted on the front of that to represent skin. I'm going to put up a target over that, and we're going to see, how these will do with headshots, because a lot of people will argue that 32 ACP, that's kind of what you need to stop a threat. So let's see what kind of results we'll get. So let's get started with this test. All right, just running some rounds of 22 over that chronograph to make sure that thing's running. Sometimes in different days, different lighting conditions, it wants to give me a little bit of an issue, which it just did. So on these days with the light a little bit lower, I have to go a little bit closer to the sensor. So I'm going to chronograph only a couple rounds of each of these to see what we get, because I only have about a half a box of each. So our PPU, 902 feet per second is its rating. So let's see how close we get to 902 with our PPU here. 709. I'll just take that one read. Next up, we have our Spear Gold Dot 60 grain rated at 960 feet per second through a 4-inch barrel. Let's see how close we get to that in this little 2 and 2.7-inch barrel. See how close we get to 960. 794. 790. Next up, we have our Federal Hydra-Shok Deep. This is a 68 grain rated at 1,000 feet per second. So let's see how close we get to that. 790. I think it's not reading. Interesting. That doesn't make any sense. Huh. Let me load up a couple more and see if I can get some reads. All right, this should read. I don't know why it wasn't those couple times there. 836. 848. Interesting. So yeah, they're about all what I'd expect. And for the people telling me to get a Garmin, shut up. I don't have $600 extra to spend on a Garmin. That's why Dan the Wolfman sent me a couple rounds of each of these to test. If I take away the cost of how much ammo I actually lose in money over that chronograph every year, it probably adds up to like $20. I'm not too worried about it. But let's hit our ballistics gel block and see how these all compare. And also, it's very cold out today. The wind chill shows it at 19 degrees is what you feel. So I think bringing my chronograph in from the inside of the house and out to this temperature can cause some of those issues with a little bit of fog going on top of those sensors. Also, another thing a lot of people say, and they think that this gel will freeze when it's this cold out. I store these in my house. You only get about a 1/2 inch of that outer material kind of getting colder from the temperature. The insides actually stay at like 65 degrees even if they're out here for a couple hours. I just want to make a mention of that. So that's why I use it, because some days I film when it's 90 degrees, some days I film when it's 19 degrees like today, and I like that consistency of that gel. So we're gonna go into plain clear ballistics to see what the best potential is with these. We're gonna start with our PPU, and then next shot will be our gold dot, and last shot will be our Hydra-Shok deep. So here's our PPU. All right, gold dot, and our Hydra-Shok deep. Let's go take a look. All right, so we got the most penetration with our PPU. I kind of expected that. Other things I'm not expecting though, is I was not expecting to see hollow point expansion even in plain gel with any of these. So I'm kind of surprised because it looks like I see some expansion. So our first 3 inches really shed some light on some of the stuff going on here. Our bottom shot with our PPU, and the middle shot with our gold dot, our Hydra-Shok deep on the top. There's a clear winner here as far as, you know, energy transfer and tearing going on. That Hydra-Shok deep, even from this little pistol, looks like it does a lot of stuff like a 380 will do, or maybe even greater. Seeing a lot of tearing damage going on with that. A lot of cutting. We don't see that typically. So our PPU, we went all the way up to about 16.5 inches of penetration. No expansion, not much damage. Our gold dot's kind of in the middle. We have a tad more damage going on in there than our PPU, but we have very limited penetration of 10 inches. In every way, in our plain clear ballistics shot, our Hydra-Shok deep did better. We have way more damage. Our track actually goes to about 12.25 inches. That bullet rolled back, and generally you see roll back a bullet when you actually have exceedingly large expansion compared to its starting diameter. You usually only see that when it's like over 1.5 times expansion. I don't know if that happened with this, but that's kind of what it looks like. So 12.25 inches. So at least in our plain clear ballistics shot, the only thing that really met our protocol of wanting to get enough, you know, penetration and some expansion was our Hydra-Shok deep. You know, the other two had one thing but not the other. A little expansion with the gold dot, not enough penetration. No expansion with the PPU, but plenty of penetration. So let's put on our denim, put on our MDF, and see how these compare in more of our real world simulation. Another thing to talk about here is sometimes you can get what's called rim lock in 32 ACP, where there's a semi-rim on these cartridges, and if the bullet is short enough, you have just enough room there for a rim to slip behind another rim and kind of lock up your function. Our PPU is very, very long in there. It goes all the way to the front of that magazine. If we look at our gold dot, push back, our gold dot's a little bit short. I'd be a little bit concerned about that. And if we look here at our Hydra-Shok deep, that's pretty close to the front as well. Got my gold dot here. So we're going to go into our real world simulation to see how these compare. I'm a little concerned about this because I really want to see that Hydra-Shok deep do really well. And sometimes when you put in fabric or rib simulation, it can really alter what you're going to get for performance. So we'll see what we get. 4 layers of sweatshirt, 3 inches of clear ballistics, 4-inch medium density fiberboard to represent ribs. Here's our PPU. All right, put that with our gold dot. And let's hit that with our Federal Hydra-Shok deep. Let's go take a look. Wow, there's some differences there. Big differences there. Wasn't expecting to see that. Very limited penetration with a couple of them. Pull out our rib simulation. It appears we might start to wobble a little bit with that PPU and go through a little bit keyhole. We're starting to tumble a lot with our gold dot going through keyhole. Our Hydra-Shok deep stayed straight, and that's what I want to see with a cartridge that doesn't have a lot of power, because we don't want it tumbling to lose the penetration, and we see a lot of loss of penetration. Our PPU, very straight line, almost no damage in that first 3 inches. We only went to 8 inches. Our gold dot has a little more damage, a little more MDF ripping up in there, and we went to 8, almost 8.5 inches. I know parallax, once you get further and further this way, or further and further this way, it looks like that bullet's more center, but that's where those are at. You know, just 8 inches and 8.25. Our Hydra-Shok deep, even though it didn't expand, ton of damage in there, a good amount going through this first 3 inches, a lot going right here. I don't know how it managed to pull that off and still move straight. It may have been tumbling and still went deep, but it stayed true to its name. It went deep. Went to about 13.5 inches. So yeah, we're talking 5 more inches versus the other two. So I don't have to tell you which one to carry here. That's the clear winner. Our PPU, it seems like it would be good because, you know, we had good penetration in our plain gel, but we can see that really limited it going through there because that's too long of a bullet and it tumbled. Our gold dot, you would think that would be good, but yeah, we can see that's not so good once we go through a real world simulation. Granted, it's not a lot different than the plain clear ballistic shot. It stayed more consistent, but that Hydra-Shok deep has everything that you're going to want. If you can, you know, make a shot where it's not going to clog up or hit a rib simulation, it's going to expand and still go deep. And if it doesn't expand, it's still going to go deep. Fantastic with that Federal Hydra-Shok deep. I didn't think it was going to work so well. And when we look at the overall length, our PPU and our Hydra-Shok deep was fine, and our gold dot was too short. So the last round I would carry, the one I would not carry, would be the gold dot. I might carry the PPU if I was desperate, but I would seek out the Hydra-Shok deep as my carry round if I was going to carry this little 32 ACP pistol. So yeah, really interesting results. So let's take a close-up look at these. We'll pull them out of the block and take a close-up look. Now I'm going to shoot at our bad guy target with our you know, skull and head simulation here and see how these will all do. All right, so here's a close-up look at these bullets going through plain gel. Here is our PPU. And to be honest, most of you probably expected something like that from a PPU. Our Spear Gold Dot, it acted like it really wanted to start to expand a little bit, but it just couldn't quite expand. Our Federal Hydra-Shok deep here, very good expansion for what it is. I'm surprised it did so well. Way better than those other two. Going through our medium density fiberboard, you know, none of these really did that well. So our PPU, I colored that to indicate it went through the MDF. Again, no expansion. Our gold dot, you know, we can see that it started to kind of tumble against that MDF, so it didn't expand. And that really limited its penetration potential. Our Hydra-Shok deep, you know, it just clogged and just punched right through. But that's actually what I want to see. You know, if we're not going to get expansion, I want to see it not get expansion through the MDF and denim so that it can punch deeper. You know, that's kind of how, like, gold dot, Hydra-Shok deep, critical duty, that's kind of how they're all designed to work in a way. They're designed to expand and flesh, but punch through like hard barriers without expanding and staying intact. It's not meant to go through a hard barrier and then expand. And with 32 ACP, because it's such a lower powered cartridge, you know, that rib simulation kind of was its hard barrier in a sense. So it designed the way that these are supposed to work. So PPU over here, let me rearrange these. PPU, gold dot, Hydra-Shok deep, clear winner there. So that's a close-up look at those. All right, so I'm going to shoot at this guy, and basically the premise here is this guy is pointing his revolver at me, and I do have the simulation right here just above the bridge of his nose, and it goes right to the top of his head. So that would kind of be the target area here. This guy's pointing his revolver at me. He's also wearing body armor, so that might be a problem if you have any caliber to stop this threat. So the premise here is he's asking for my money. I am about, I would say, 7 feet from him, from my feet to that target. And I'm going to give him my wallet that's in my pocket. So here you go, buddy. That was the PPU. And that went right through everything there. Straight line. Now I have the Spear gold dot here. You want my wallet? Let me get my kid's photo out first. And I completely missed that. Let me load up another gold dot and try to make a hit with that. All right, so I've already planned if I miss that shot, just trying to pull it out on this demonstration. I'm actually just going to slow aim to make sure I get, you know, one of each of these going through here. So here's our gold dot. Made a hit in a similar area. Now, let's do our Hydra-Shok deep from the pocket, see how this feels for me. Oh, you want my wallet? Here you go. I'm hitting in kind of similar areas. Let's do one more higher. Let's take a look at that ballistic head. All right, so I cut off the tape, but I have not taken a look yet to see for sure if everything's passed through. Three shots are kind of in the same area here, so I think my muscle memory is just kind of there. And yeah, when we look at all these shots, you know, the last one in the middle is that Hydra-Shok deep. It's kind of hard to see. There it is. And you can definitely see which one's the deep down there, the one I aimed, versus the other two are just straight lines going through. So I think all of these went through. Yeah, I feel bulges here, but yeah, they all went straight through. So it's safe to say that you have enough penetration with something like that. You know, a lot of people have this idea that, you know, it's going to bounce off a skull or something. And while that could be a potential for a weak enough round at the right angle, I think 32 is just enough that's not going to happen. And I would say this is extraordinarily effective if you were to make a shot like this with any of these. But our Hydra-Shok deep definitely did more scrambling there. And I think that that would, you know, that would shut down a threat a little bit faster. I mean, basically all of them would, but there's been strange incidences where something passing straight through isn't necessarily going to do that. But yeah, something that's going to scramble around like that Hydra-Shok deep there, very effective. So let me shoot at the steel and see what kind of practical accuracy I can get with these. All right, so I'm just going to do a couple rounds each slow fire at the steel. I actually came back to 15 yards. I'm not going to pull from the pocket and just, you know, shoot as fast as I can because, you know, I'm going to miss and that's going to be on me and not the ammo. So I just want to see how hard this stuff hits the steel. So 2 rounds of PPU, then 2 rounds of gold dot, then 2 rounds of Hydra-Shok deep. And aim center mass and just do kind of a controlled pair and see how these all do. So here's our PPU. Right, here's our gold dot. Here is our Hydra-Shok deep. right, they all shot pretty good. Now, I will say that the PPU and the Gold Dot had almost no felt recoil. The Hydra-Shok Deep was considerably more, but we're talking going from almost nothing to 50% more. The Hydra-Shok Deep still had way less recoil than like even a 380 ACP. But it's something to note that there's definitely a little bit more recoil there, but all of them seem to shoot pretty well from my point of aim here. So this is a pretty easy test to judge and tell you which one of these three is better. The Gold Dot's the worst, and I'm going to tell you why. One, it didn't expand. Two, we had way under penetration with both of these shots. And three, the rounds are way too short. They're, from my eyes, it looks like there's more than a rim thickness difference from the nose of the bullet to the front of the magazine. Almost looks like there's twice that much. So I could very easily see how that Gold Dot could rim lock very, very easily. The longest of these bullets was the PPU. So that's not going to rim lock. And we had okay penetration without the rib simulation, but not so much with the rib simulation. So while it's better than the Gold Dot, it's not that good. Now, our Federal Hydra-Shok Deep had everything we wanted other than super, super low recoil. It had a long cartridge nose, so it's not going to rim lock. We had plenty of penetration, and in our plain clear ballistic shot, we had expansion. So all of those are really, really good attributes to have, especially in a 32 ACP and a pistol with a barrel length this short. Getting performance like that is kind of unheard of. So it's kind of a magic bullet in a way. It's really, really good. I would say it's safe to say that this 32 is easily as effective as a 380 ACP, maybe even more than a lot of them. So really a really great cartridge overall, that Federal Hydra-Shok Deep. You know, I was kind of concerned it wouldn't do very well, being called deep and all that, but very surprised. So that's what you get today. And again, thank you to Dan the Wolfman for sending this ammunition out to me. Check out his channel, and that's what you get today. So as always, comment, share, and like, and thanks for watching.